What's up guys, LeopoldTheBrave here, and for the longest time I've struggled quite a bit trying to break out of my bubble and try new things. So last year I started one of those media thread things, and decided to check out all kinds of new media, movies, TV shows, games, and more. Unfortunately, Twitter's small character limit doesn't really give me the opportunity to gush about what I just checked out, especially if I loved it. So I figured, hey, why not make a video? And my good friend Biffweed makes videos like this based on his media threads too, so it's not too weird for me to do. But here's the catch. I didn't really start mine until like halfway through the year. So there's not really a ton for me to talk about, definitely not enough for me to do a whole top 10, but I can definitely do a top 3 and run through the rest as honorable mentions. Despite how late I started though, I was still able to check out over 40 different things, and I've already surpassed that this year and it's only May, so I'm pretty proud of myself. With that said though, let's check out some of my favorite new media I checked out in 2023. At number 3 we have Crash Team Rumble. Yeah, it didn't really score the highest on this media thread, only getting a 6 out of 10, but I did spend a ton of time with it, and I did personally like it myself. I've already made a review, plenty of other videos about this game, and I plan to make a retrospective next month now that it's stopped receiving updates, so I'll try to keep this short. Basically, it was a really fun time. The competitive flow of games going back and forth to see who could bank the most Wumpa, while stopping the other team from banking their Wumpa, was super fun. All the characters' unique abilities and the power-ups you could get from relic stations. The huge drawback at launch when I added this game to the media thread was that there was pretty much no content. Only 8 characters, only like 8 maps, one single game mode, and it was online only. They did add more of each of those things as the game went on, but it never really did get to feel like it lived up to its full potential. I kept up with the game for every single update, every single season, and I completed every single battle pass, but overall it still keeps its 6 out of 10 rating. I definitely enjoyed and loved it, but man, it could have been so much greater. Number 2 is Invincible Season 2, Part 1. After that first season and then going through all the comics, I was absolutely hooked. I couldn't wait to see more, and then I had to wait for 2 years. And though the wait felt agonizing at times, I think it was absolutely worth it in the end. The animation was great, I loved seeing all the characters again, we got more great stories, and since I had read all the comics by that time, I loved pointing out specific scenes and going, hey, I remember that! I loved a lot of the new scenes too though, like Omni-Man fleeing Earth, that scene in front of the black hole, man. I love how quick things are progressing too, and that they're not milking the comics by drawing them out as long as they can. I really thought we were gonna have to wait till near the end of the season to see Omni-Man again. Now, the fact that this is a part 1 of season 2 and there was a mid-season break is kind of annoying. They basically only did it so Amazon could show off that they had ads now during the second part of season 2. But no matter how many outside factors try to bring it down, Invincible Season 2 Part 1 was amazing. Before we get to number 1, let's talk about a ton of honorable mentions. First up is Captain Laserhawk, which was like a crossover Ubisoft alternate reality anime type thing. They had an Assassin's Creed frog, they had giant monster kaiju rabbits at one point, and even Rayman. I'm a huge Rayman fan, so I pretty much watched this whole thing entirely for him. And they had this dude Rayman smoking, getting drunk, swearing, using guns, doing drugs, and eating sushi off a naked cowgirl's butt. There was some random outrage on Twitter about how could they let a beloved 90s video game platformer do these kinds of horrible things. What an insult to the character. But me and all the other real Rayman fans absolutely loved it. This is completely in character for our limbless legend if he were actually in this situation. So all the fake Rayman fans, stop pretending to be offended for us. And the rest of the show was great too. I was actually really invested in the story, and I can't wait to see more. Not all of these honorable mentions can be hits though. Next up is Dude, Where's My Car?, an Ashton Kutcher movie. It was boring 50% of the time, and the other 50% was cheap laughs with fake offensive jokes. I loved Ashton Kutcher in that 70s show, so I wanted to see something with him as the star, but this wasn't a good first impression. But back to the awesome stuff. My girlfriend recommended me the Final Destination movies. If I did make this list a top 10 or even a top 5, they definitely hit number 4. I loved all of these, the creative death scenes, the creative ways they tried to escape death, the cast of characters in each one were super good, my favorite one is probably the third one, And the effects, while cheesy most of the time, still got huge reactions out of me. Next up is the iCarly reboot, and I don't really have a ton to say because I didn't make it too far. I'm super glad You Know Who isn't involved with the show anymore, but that still doesn't automatically make it good. The set design was really desaturated and boring, it wasn't as funny, the actors were more monotone, and Carly was kind of insufferable a lot of the time. Just because you're a more adult-oriented show now doesn't mean you have to be boring. Ugh. Crash Team Rumble wasn't the only new game I played this year though, there was also Lethal Company. Genuinely one of the funniest games I've played in a long time, and I didn't even play with any friends yet. Even hopping on with complete strangers is still a riot, and that meme about this game turning people into 5-star voice actors, absolutely true. The terrified shrieks I've heard are unreal. My first 10 out of 10 of the year was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. If I made this whole thing a countdown, this would have hit number 5. Such a sweet and emotional story, some of the most creative animation I've ever seen in a film, fantastic action, and for once, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles actually act like teenagers. But back to the girlfriend recommendations. She also mentioned Mean Girls and Superbad to me, both of which were insanely hilarious in completely different ways. I love them both to the point where I took her to see the new Mean Girls that came out earlier this year. In the realm of superheroes like Invincible though, there's also My Adventures with Superman and The Boys. Superman I was super into at first, but it kinda bored me within a couple episodes. There was nothing bad about it, it just wasn't all too exciting. The Boys was great though, even if it did drag on a bit in some areas. Definitely looking forward to season 4, especially now that they brought in Jeffrey Dean Morgan to play a character. For indie animation, we have The Amazing Digital Circus. I loved the pilot at first, but over time it kinda fell into the realm of for me. However, the recent episode 2 that we got brought it right back up. Can't go into that too much though, saving it for next year's list. Then finally we have Puss in Boots: The Last Wish and Across the Spider-Verse. Both incredibly told stories with gorgeous animation and beloved characters. But I checked these out before I started my media thread, so I wasn't really looking at them too much with a critical eye. I was just laying back, emptying my mind and enjoying them as they are. But enough of the honorable mentions, now on to number 1. And my number 1 favorite new thing I checked out in 2023 was the Saw franchise. I did not expect to like this series as much as I did. Horror isn't really my thing. Not that I don't like it, it's just slashers, monsters, and jump scares and stuff don't really get any response out of me. What really makes my hairs stand on end is the eeriness and the mind games of it all. And the Saw movies may just be the best at that. But don't worry, it's not all mindless gore and puzzles. There's always a B-plot about a group of detectives trying to figure out who's setting up these games, or who's in the games at the moment. There are a couple movies in the franchise where the detective stuff becomes the A-plot instead of the B-plot, and that kinda drags it down a little. But nowhere near to the point of being unwatchable. The only movie in the franchise I can say is kinda bad is Saw 3. The A and B plots felt so disconnected right up until the very end, the traps weren't very creative, and the person playing the game and going through the traps was really kind of annoying. And avoiding saying his name in case people want to check out the Saw franchise, but they let a certain character pass on a bit too fast. I do enjoy who came in to replace him, but I would have liked to see more of him. And shortly after I checked out all these movies for the very first time, one of my favorite YouTubers, Ellis Mark, put up a video where he watched all of them for the very first time. So it kinda slightly emulated the feeling of watching these as they came out and then discussing it with people. Only pointing this out because this is like the 3rd time I've checked out something new and then Ellis Mark has randomly made a video about it. Just a funny coincidence. If this keeps up, based on things I've watched this year, Ellis Mark should upload a video about Rocky and Planet of the Apes soon. But anyways, that was my media thread from 2023. There's a few more things I checked out that didn't make it into this video, but you can easily view it by clicking the link in the description below to see my Twitter thread about it. I'll even include my one from this year so you can see where I'm at so far. But let me know what you guys think. Have you checked out anything new this year that you haven't seen before? And what do you think of the new stuff that I watched? Let me know in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys next time. Leopold the Brave, out.